What are you doing? Why are you still peeing?
The topic of dogs. They've been around for a long time, and they are annoying sometimes to have as pets, but wouldn't it be awkward if they had the desire to eat you? Dogs love their bones, but could they possibly want to eat us? Hello everybody, my name is DevilGamer, and welcome to Fear, Episode 4, where we're diving into some of the most disgusting and disturbing information to date. Dogs. Now, they're known to have long tongues, and it's just... It's weird, and they have long tongues, they lick us, and they're overall good companions to have around. But is it true, according to this website, that dogs lick us because we have bones inside and they want them? And this is also backed up by scientists. So what I'm about to read to you is completely real and may contain disturbing content. So this is your warning. Doggos love their bones, but could we be confusing the lickos and tongue blips we all know and love as their kisses for our bones' potential at a heckin' good taste? Sinologist Karen Wilburn is an expert dog psychologist who seems to believe that our best friends have a more sinister agenda when they bath us in their saliva. They want to eat us, yeah. Our skin has salt, which makes it even more appetizing, but ultimately, they know what's hiding below. Karen insists that if we buy a bone for them once a week to eat on, we have a better chance of curbing their cravings. But just be sure to keep their bowls full of crunches and plenty of water to maintain your family's safety. If this is really true, then dogs just might ruin humanity and society. Now, articles are backed up. It's like, so, dogs want to lick us, wolves want to eat us, so it's clear that dogs we know and love are very distinct from wolves. Aside from variations in their genetic code, the way dogs interact and behave around us humans is very different from the behavior of typical wolves, even if the dogs and wolves are raised in similar conditions. In particular, the special relationship dogs have with us is because the success of dogs as a species relies heavily on humans. Researchers from Otovos University in Hungary performed 2 studies that compared the behavior of dogs and wolves in their relationship with humans. So the first study, the researchers compared the attachment levels to humans in 3 groups: pet dog puppies, hand-raised wolf cubs, and hand-raised dog puppies. The hand-raised animals spent 24 hours a day with their human, while the pet dog puppies were occasionally left by themselves. This study on attachment levels found that pet dogs and hand-reared dogs behaved in similar ways, and wolves behaved differently from these 2 groups. For example, the 2 groups of dog puppies were much more responsive to their owner than an unfamiliar human, where the socialized wolves did not make this distinction. This means that the dogs differentiate between their owners and their people, and treat them differently, while wolves do not. This shows that dogs' experience of levels attachments to their owner that wolves do not achieve, and it is significant because it also means that dogs can readily different again between the individuals of another species. Both groups of dogs also spent more time than wolves standing by the door when their owners were absent. Lastly, this study found that dogs greeted their owner more intensely than the strangers, while wolves greeted everyone with equal intensity. So in the second study, the researchers explored whether dogs and wolves would rely on human cues or otherwise seek help from humans when trying to solve an impossible task. The second study was designed to compare how dogs and wolves communicate and interact with humans. The dogs and wolves used in the experiment have been socialized to humans at comparable levels. Dogs and wolves were both trained to solve a simple task and were then presented with an unsolvable version of the same task. The researchers found something very interesting. Dogs looked to a human when they realized they couldn't solve a task, while the wolves did not. Based off of this finding, the researchers concluded that preferential looking at humans seems to be an evolved behavior, especially in dogs, because while dogs did this naturally, it was difficult to induce this behavior in wolves, even after the intensive socialization. So what did the study suggest? Evidence from studies like the two mentioned above show that even though wolves are dogs' closest relatives, the two species are very different from each other. Dogs have a long history of adaptation to human environment, and it suggested that behavior controls evolutionary selection process during domestication and altered their behavior and behavior control systems in addition to their morphological traits. Over time, dogs evolved in ways so that the majority of the population would possess traits that would benefit humans. The studies provide evidence that specific genetic changes might have been associated with the emergence of attachment behavior in dogs. In fact, dogs are usually competent in social interaction with humans and possess special abilities in cooperation, social learning, and communication with people. Dogs have the unique ability to look at and read the human face, and while wolves tend to become attached to a pack instead of a certain individual, dogs develop special relationships with the people most involved and responsible for their care. It is clear that dogs diverge from wolves. They have evolved in a way to become a man's best friend. So, what's the truth here? So, we have super scary. This is fear, so it's gonna get scary up in here. Welcome to horrifying stories of animals eating their owners. Another grisly details we learned about our pets from a forest snake anthropologist. And you'll never be able to look at a Morrow video the same way again. Carolyn Rando, PhD, is a forest snake and anthropologist at the UCL Institute of Archaeology and Case Academy. One of her favorite topics of research is animal scavengers, so naturally we ask her questions about pets eating their owners. She says, yes, your pets will eat you when they die, and perhaps a bit sooner than is comfortable. They tend to go for the neck, face, and any exposed areas first, and then, if not discovered at the time, they may proceed to eat the rest of you. And what she revealed about their eating habits was morbidly fascinating. So here's what we learned. Your dog just might try to eat you while you're passed out and drunk. Randu mentions a sordid case that was analyzed in a 1994 study published in the American Journal of Forensic Medicine and Pathology. The case involves a middle-aged woman who got too drunk and passed out. Her dog, a red setter, had started biting her face while she was unconscious. She later died, but the dog couldn't even wait a whole day to munch on his owner and started chewing on her face within 16 hours of the woman last being alive. But in case you're wondering, why would Fluffy want to eat me after my death? In many cases, the simple answer is instinct, Rando said. While we still have domestic cats and dogs millennia ago, they still have some aspects of their wild ancestors. When you die, the animal often becomes distressed and may attempt to wake you up. They will lick and nip at the face, and once they've licked enough, they may draw blood. So this could trigger an instinctive behavior, resulting in more wounding and eventually consumption of human tissue, she said. But in some cases, dogs will eat you because they're just really hungry. Render referenced the case discussed in a 2007 study published in Science Direct. This time it was a middle-aged woman who had been eaten but not one, but two dogs. And the worst part, the dogs consumed her entire body. The only things left of the poor woman were small bone fragments, a piece of her skull, and some hair. Randy said that the woman had been dead for a whole month before she was found. Officers at the scene arrived to find 2 bags full of dog food that had been ripped open and eaten, and they had run out of their normal food, so they had to look elsewhere. So the dogs appeared healthy, she said. Dogs normally don't eat you immediately after you die, but there's always an exception to the rule. Unlike wild animals, there's usually a waiting period before a domesticated dog will ravish your body, but Randu said it doesn't happen in a tragic case discussed. That didn't happen in a tragic case discussed in a 1997 study published in Forest Science International. A young man in his early 30s committed suicide by shooting himself in the head. Within approximately 45 minutes of the shot, police arrived on the scene. She said, the police found dog food and a rather friendly German shepherd who readily went with them. And then the story gets even more gruesome. So within a few minutes, the dog began vomiting the remains of its owner, which included skin and hair. The gunshot upset the animal, causing it to panic somewhat. The dog likely went up to its owner looking for comfort, and then with the blood, well, it probably just couldn't help itself. Also, not to mention, you're not safe with cats, so they'll eat your face too. Randu references another case in the American Journal of Forensic Medicine and Pathology study, but this time it involves a horde of cats. She said, this one is so sad, it quite upsets me. Again, it involves a man in his early 30s who committed suicide when he was found 3 days later. His head, neck, and part of his arm were completely disfleshed, right down to the bone, she said. But here's the weird thing. He had 10 cats and all of them had died too. So apparently he overdosed on prescription medicine. When his cats feasted on his face and body, they also died of the poisoning. The reason for a cat's morbid appetite? Cats are a bit more complex, but that's partly down to the lower number of available published cases. But it's likely the motivation is the same or similar to that of the dogs. But cats are still superior, aloof beings, at least in the following case. So here's one that involves both a dog and a cat. Randu referenced a case that was described in a 2010 study in the Journal of Forensic and Legal Medicine. In the case, a woman was found dead in her bathroom by her husband. She died of an aneurysm, but her nose and lips were missing. Quite interestingly, and a bit contrary to what people might think, all the injuries found on the woman were caused by her dog. The cats had no part in it. Just like the unusual cases that lacked a waiting period, the dog had preyed upon the victim only a few hours after her death. As for why the cat didn't go in for a nibble, well, that's anyone's guess. But if I had to go out on a limb, I'd say either the cats couldn't be bothered or hadn't noticed yet, she said. And hamsters are the worst of all. They might take their new dream home out of your decomposing body. A personal favorite of mine involves a hamster. In my experience, that hamster story is about as weird as they come, she said. A 1995 study in Forensic Science International details possibly only documented case of animal scavenging by hamster. Likely in nearly all the cases, the victim was found dead in her home with unusual marks and wounds on her face. The woman died of pneumonia, but some marks of her face were arranged in pairs. After careful investigation, it was found that the woman owned a free-range golden hamster. And when investigators looked in the inconspicuous open drawer, they found the ghastly sight: a hamster's burrow. Its new home was made out of human skin, fat, and muscle tissue. As for the hamster's motivation, who knows? She added, though, it's not uncommon for rodents to make a nest inside a human body, particularly the chest. This provides a safe, closed environment for them. Those cheeky rodents even use human hair and clothing to insulate their new homes. But she said that's normally when the body is dried out and mummified rather than fresh, so the free-range hamster is a bizarre case. Rodents will also gnaw bones to get calcium and grind down to their front teeth, which never stop growing. In the above photo of a skull, and it's human, you can see the evidence of a rodent gnawing near the foramen magnum, aka the big hole at the bottom of the skull. But most of the time, this only happens when the bones are withered and dry, according to a Journal of Forsnick Science study described by Rando. Contrary to popular opinion, exotic animals like snakes and lizards won't eat you. Ironically, many people fear lizards and snakes, which makes them unpopular choices as pets. But according to Rando, they don't usually even engage in scavenging behavior in the wild. I would say it's more likely for your cute, cuddly pet to eat you after you've died, she said. And the exotic pets are probably less likely to kill you too, considering that there are more cases of dog attacks and serious infection after cat bites, said Rando. But even if animals and insects didn't eat you, the human body is capable of eating itself completely. This is due to two processes: our gut flora, bacteria that live in our intestines and stomach, etc., multiplying unchecked and consuming us from the inside, and secondly, our cells undergoing a process called autolysis or self-digestion, whereby our enzymes essentially destroy our cells. Most of us would like to think that our pets would not want to consume us after our death, she said, but of course, this is not always the case. I'm DevilGamer, and you have been watching Fear. I'll see you in the next one. And remember, don't turn off the lights.